Thank God I'm pretty. Every skill I ever had will be in question. Every ill that I must suffer, clearly brought on by myself. Though the cops would come for someone else, I'm blessed.
Questions before, or you're alright?
No.
No? Oh, you went to stories me. Oh,
yes,
okay.
please. So I'll talk about anything.
Oh, okay.
I'll warn you, I like words a lot, so I just keep talking, so feel free at any point to just be like, hey, shut up. Quiet it down, and I'll be okay with that.
We got 9 hours on the camera, so...
Just slap me across the face too, that works, and I kind of like it. So, yes.
Oh, okay. Right, you ready? Okay. Who inspired you to become a musician?
Thank you, baby. This cup of tea, Melissa did. Thank you, that was awesome. Nobody, in fact. It was just something that it all began by when I was a little, like I was that big. I was like 2 inches tall, the 2-inch tall version of me. And I was 4, and I just saw a violin like passing in a shop window, and I just thought it was a really pretty thing, so I wanted one. And that's the beginning of everything. So I didn't even know anything about music at the time, other than I think the first thing that I ever sang was when I was 2 years old, and I actually heard a recording of this. I stood up in my crib apparently and sang pretty accurately, from what I heard, the theme of Star Wars, and that was my debut apparently vocally. So yeah, always had a close kinship with that movie.
You don't know anyone then?
Yeah. No, I've learned a bit, but I still get that, like the Star Wars theme stuck in my head at least like 3 times a week. That is not a joke.
Oh, okay. You play a certain style of music which is Victorian industrial, which sounds very interesting. Could you kindly elaborate on that for me, please?
I will. Oh, that was so polite and sweet. It all started just kind of in a silly way that I didn't expect to actually be taken as a serious, like, new genre, which is pretty great that we're still talking about it, which means it lasted. And it was just something to describe when, like, Emilie first hit, and it first hit in Germany, like, very quickly, and there was a definite, like, the audience was very gothic, industrial. Now, of course, it's much wider ranging, but at that time, those were the people who caught on to it and really knew about it and enjoyed it. So because it was never goth music and a goth band, and that, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it just isn't, so it just wouldn't be accurate. And also to explain the fact that it's got some very, like, old school, as in like 200 years ago, old school influences and touches of, you know, with like the orchestral stuff and the harpsichord and all of this, which was, and the subject matter and the choruses and all of that being very much about, you know, this story that takes place half of, like, in Victorian England. So that was just a way to explain to people, almost as a joke, like, I'm going to call it this because anything that I call it genre-wise is in some way or other not going to be accurate. So let's just make up something new, because it'll at least, like, sound or have better connotations than any particular genre. And now I realize it's actually pretty accurate, but it's actually grown to seem like so much more than that, and it's metal-y and classical-y and operatic and other things that I don't even know, and yeah, so really I don't know what to call it anymore. Actually, I call it either vaudeville. Basically, this is what I have to do when I'm in a taxi cab somewhere, and he's like, oh, you have crazy hair, you must be a musician or something. I'm like, yeah, that's the only way I can get away with looking like this. And they're like, what do you do? What's your name? And what's your band called? And I say, oh, it's me. And then you say, what kind of music is it? And that's where I'm always stuck, like, I have no idea anymore. It's so weird. And so then I just come up with something ridiculous and make up a word that doesn't exist. Or I've come to just say, now I just call it glam rock burlesque, because it sounds funny, and also it is glam rock. Like, there's a lot of glitter, so that's pretty much what you need.
Oh, okay. Your upcoming album, Fight Like a Girl, is being released soon. How did you come up with the idea for the title?
That was something that began as the concept behind, as you probably know, it's like this, or maybe, I don't know, I shouldn't assume, but all of this is about this book that I wrote at the Asylum for Wayward Victorian Girls. So the show is very literally taken from this section of the book, which is kind of the next chapter and what the show's been about, or what the music has been about before, is kind of setting the stage for all of this. And now it's about this chapter in the book where the girls, through some really marvelous circumstances, realize that they have, and maybe always had, but we're not sure. There's a lot of like different ways you can look at this, but the key to be able to get out from behind the prison bars. And so they're standing at the precipice of this thing in this massive insane asylum, and realizing that, you know, there's maybe 1,000 of them, and there's perhaps 50 doctors and attendants and all the people that have been in charge of running this place and have been just torturing them in all kinds of ways for years. And so they realize that, in fact, they're the majority, and once they're on the other side of the bars, who's scary now? And so they go on this rampage called the Tea Party Massacre, and basically they're like, fuck it, alright, we have to do this in the attempt to free ourselves and take back the asylum and make it what it was always meant to be, which is a sanctuary, a place to go to be safe. That's what the word means, but it's never been that way. Then we just need to take down everybody and get this place back and eradicate the enemy. And so they do. That just leads us to Fight Like a Girl being clearly, it's not such a bad thing, because they did a really good job. That's something that we're all completely capable of, and that it's a term, bringing that into our modern reality, of course, it's a term that we all, in our various cultures, but many of us here or over here, growing up, that's something that's commonly used, so common that you don't even raise an eyebrow at it anymore, is words like this, that it's commonly used to insult boys, which isn't okay, and ridicule girls, because we're a joke, right? So, deciding just in my own way to take something that is negative, hurtful, and frankly inaccurate, and turn it into something magnificent and beautiful and badass and very good indeed. So that's the idea, is just making it a source of power and strength to do, and something that everybody could learn from, like maybe this is a better way to go about things. So that's what that means, and it's also a little bit of a twisted joke, which also makes it fun, just because if we can't have a laugh of all of this kind of dark subject matter, then we'll just curl up into a ball and die. That's not it. And it's about this, the asylum army, and how everybody comes together to fight, and realizing that there is nothing wrong with them. They don't have to become male in order to do this. They don't have to become anything but the most badass versions of what they are.
That's really interesting.
Thank God I'm pretty. Every skill I ever had will be in question. Every ill that I must suffer, clearly brought on by myself. Though the cops would come